Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Pioneering Years, which is the next phase from the life of the Lionesses. And we already, from the life of the Lionesses, have met the legend, which was Michaela Hirst. However, now we're going to chat about more about her involvement at club level, how she got involved, her work with the Wildcats, and begin to unpick the support she gave to the women's game through Women's Amateur Rugby League Association, which was WALA. Because actually within the Leeds area, Michaela was so instrumental in developing the women's game, and quite often an uphill struggle to make sure that women played rugby league and continued to play rugby league in Leeds. So welcome, Michaela.
Thank you.
Thank you. An impromptu cough, obviously. So, first of all, the people that don't know you that are listening to this, how did you get involved in rugby league in the first place? And just tell us about your early days and getting involved in Guiseley.
Wow. So yeah, probably about 15, 16, and I had a best friend called Helen, who I later discovered she had a nickname called Nelly. She played rugby for Guiseley, and I don't think I really knew about her playing for Guiseley. I just knew that we played a lot of sport at school, and I played hockey. And one day we were short of hockey, so I asked if she could help us out and make up the numbers, because Nelly was one of those people that was really good at any sport that she set her mind to. You know, she's a natural gifted athlete, if you like. So I took her to hockey, where I think we just giggled all the time. I think we annoyed people, but hey ho. And then she said to me, "Why don't you come to rugby?" And I didn't have a clue what rugby was. I don't even think I've even seen a rugby ball. And bearing in mind, I lived very close to Bramley Rugby League as well. I never ever knew what a rugby league ball looked like.
And Bramley at that time would have been in a league and everything, wouldn't they? And
yeah, they were a very good side. They had a lovely stadium. And again, I'd kind of been to the stadium, but I just don't have any recollection of actually understanding or knowing what that was all about. It's pure and simply, I just remember going, and that is it. So yeah, Helen took me along to Guiseley, and I had one training session, and then we were told that we were getting picked up on a Sunday at Rodley roundabout. This clapped out old banger of a bus. I think it had a B-Reg, old B-Reg plate. Picked us up at roundabout and off to, I'm gonna presume it was Crossfield that we went to, and kind of I loved it from there on in. I remember catching my first ball, running up the wing and scoring and getting winded, because like just landing on the ball, you know. So yeah, you soon learn how to kind of put the ball down without
without getting winded. And actually, Guiseley were one of the pioneering teams, so one of the first teams that played in a formal league for what was then LALA, Ladies Amateur Rugby League Association. I mean, you probably wouldn't have known that at the time, but there was, they were one of the first clubs that played more formal fixtures that were recognised by an overarching governing body.
Yeah, because I mean, we played. There were 3 teams that I can recall, and I think we even dropped down to 2 at one point, and that was just Dudley Hill and Guiseley, with Crossfield coming in after that. So yeah, and I can remember Keithley coming in and out, and I think when I first started, Ulverston had been kind of was in the mix, but
yeah,
I don't recall Ulverston personally.
So. Yeah. They were definitely in the mix. What we've got to do is unpick with exactly what happened that first season. And I've got a fixture list with 4 teams. Actually, Keithley's mentioned in the first fixture list that I've discovered. But we've just got to unpick all that. And it was probably about 86, I think, 86, 87.
Right, yeah, and that's
Yeah,
right. I just didn't think that Guiseley had been about and then dropped out, and then came back. So
yeah.
just obviously there was just not that interest, and teams came and went quite often. So it was hard to maintain that, if you like.
So how long did you play for Guiseley for?
I'm going to say good 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And that's then when I started Hunslet. I just got, like, Dave Clayton were great. He did a lot for Women's Rugby League, and I appreciate everything that he did back then. But I just think that he wanted the monopoly, and I suppose in a way it was his little baby, and he didn't want to let that go, and I appreciate that. And I wanted to learn more, I wanted to do more, and I just wanted the game to expand, and it was slowly expanding. I just maybe didn't feel it expanding enough, and I just wanted to have a go at coaching, I think.
So is that when you did your coaching badge?
Yeah, I did my coaching badge, and I set up Hunslet. And we were the first, like, the group of women. I think Jackie Sheldon had kind of just come into, I think she was the Rugby League Development Officer for Halifax. And yeah, she'd set up a course, or somebody had set up a coaching course. And it was the first lot of all women coaches that participated. So yeah, and I loved that. Absolutely. I think it was down in Sheffield. But again, it's just vague memories. It's a long time.
Yeah. It was a long time ago. Can you remember who was on it that you still remember now?
No,
No.
not this. I cannot remember anything apart from kind of my involvement, unfortunately.
Yeah. So you got an interested player, then you went into coach, and then how did you go about setting Hunslet up then? And how
So,
was the link with the Hunslet club, or was there not a link?
no, there was. I'd written to Hunslet. I'd written to Leeds Rhinos to see if anybody was interested in helping us. And Leeds, I can't. I want to say that they got back to me and weren't interested, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Hunslet straight away came back and said, "Yes, we'd like for you to be a part of it." A guy called David something or other.
David Plange.
No. Before him, it was the, I'd say it was the secretary or the chairman.
Right, okay.
One of those guys, and he organised, I think, for Paul Daly to come down and give us a couple of training sessions. And I love Paul Daly.
Oh, what a man!
Yeah, absolute legend.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd written to him. He then gave us a kit. They allowed us to use the Phoenix Bar underneath Ellen Road. We actually played the game at Ellen Road. So
Oh, wow.
that was, like, amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong, only probably about 10 people in the stadium, but I've still played at Ellen Road, I don't care. And then it kind of took off from there. I did. It was the demise, unfortunately, of Guiseley then at that point, because I took some players with me, which is not great. But we all wanted to kind of progress a little bit more, and I suppose in a way as well, it was closer to where we all lived, because none of us, there weren't very many of us that actually lived in Guiseley. I think I was living in Belle Isle at the time. So yeah, we started training where the new stadium is now. We were training on probably the old fields that were there.
Yeah.
Where I was living, we literally climbed down the hill.
Yeah.
And that was the field.
The South Leeds Stadium, where the South Leeds Stadium was built.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we just started training there, and I think I took 6 players with me from Guiseley, which gave us a very good, strong core, because we only played 9-side then. And then 3 other people came. Sam Wood being one of them, Tish Furness being one, and then Wiggy came from somewhere, and I really just can't remember where we came from. So that was the kind of the with the 6 people from Guiseley and those 3, that were our solid 9 players, and slowly added onto those, and we were quite a good, formidable force for our first season, and we won the league and got promoted.
Wow. So that would have been sort of mid to end 90s, wouldn't it?
mid 90s.
Yeah. I remember Hunslet being around when I was rugby league development officer in Leeds, which was 97, 98. So
that was the other team though, because we disbanded, became Milford, and then later on another Hunslet team appeared.
Oh right. Now we're unpicking it.
Yeah, because with John Cockcroft, originally at Middleton, and then they became Hunslet.
Right. No. I remember you being there at Hunslet when I was there.
Right, okay.
Definitely. And then going over to Milford.
Right.
Yeah. We'll get the dates as we unpick all this, but it's more interesting the stories of sort of how it came about. So how long was that Hunslet particular team then? And you were coaching it. Who was who was doing, were you coach, secretary and bottle washer?
Yes, yeah, all that. And I worked with Dylan Maynard. We worked at Avery Scales, Wayne Scales together in an office, and I knew he coached the boys at Stanley Rangers, so I'd asked him if he fancied coming and helping me sometimes and doing some training sessions. And so he did, and I think he got the bug for it. And he seemed to stop coaching at Stanley and came along and coached us full time. So between him and me, we coached the team. So, and we've travelled all over.
Yeah. So so Hunslet had a good few seasons, and then what happened with the Hunslet team? And there was Stanley at the time, wasn't there, which was in Leeds?
Yeah, there was. I want to say they were kind of. I don't know if we were in the first division at this point, and Stanley was in the second division. And I knew that they'd kind of been struggling on and off for players. We had a good, friendly rivalry between us and Stanley, because obviously we weren't too far away. I was from just up the road, so we knew a lot of their players as well. And Jackie Walker, who was their secretary at the time, we arranged a meeting between all the players and ourselves, so Hunslet and Stanley. And we arranged it at Milford, because I think Stanley had just moved to Milford. Now, I could be wrong on this. It's just, my memories and maybe not what it used to be. So we had this. I just remember having a meeting at Milford, and we decided that we were going to combine together and become a Milford women's team. And then we came up with sort of Milford Storm. So we pinched Melbourne Storm's logo, or a version of it, and added our little twist to it. And that's kind of how it came about, or how Milford came about.
Yeah. And how was Milford? Because it's a community club, isn't it? It's an amateur club, Milford, but they had really nice facilities, didn't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, they took us on board straight away. They were eager to help us. There was a little training ground that had a couple of floodlights up near Headingley. So we trained there, and then we played opposite Kirkstall Abbey. And again, it just really good facilities, from what we'd had before. They were quite good facilities.
Yeah.
And sort of playing where we played, it was on the main A65, is it? Yeah, 65 road, Kirkstall, like Leeds to Hill, if you like. So busy road, and I think we used to get quite a few supporters from actually playing on that road.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what was it like playing sort of in the women's league at that time? Because was there more clubs and was there more divisions and?
Yeah, definitely. I want to say, at least 10 by this point. and it was just nice. But still, it was still small, and we still had our friends. The opposite teams. We just got very friendly with all the teams. I mean, that started off when I played at Guiseley. Being very close to Crossfields players who, came to my 18th birthday party and stayed at my mum's. So yeah, it was just really friendly. Not friends on the pitch, but once
community.
playing, yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I think I've made some lifelong friends through that. And hopefully yourself included. So
absolutely, yeah, right back in the day, isn't it? It's scary when you sort of begin to look at how many years and our involvement, isn't it? And when you think about that time and the gatherings, so there was the Blackpool, wasn't there? There was there was Morecambe and then Blackpool, where all the teams used to get for a presentation, didn't they?
Yeah, and that was phenomenal. An absolute event in itself. We'd go Friday until Sunday. Friday, you got absolutely blathered, drunk as a skunk. I think we went paddling in sea at midnight one year and everything. But no, that Friday night was renowned for. We'd go around all the bars in Blackpool, get drunk, probably make a fool of yourself, and then Saturday everybody had a hangover for the presentation night. But, all the clubs just came together, and we all mixed well. It was just a really friendly atmosphere, and great, absolutely great.
Yeah. Have you got any memories of sort of the actual games themselves? Any sort of special memories of when you played and when you went away, or any specific something that happened?
Sort of the ones that stand out are the British Colour Nines that Guiseley and Crossfields played.
Mm.
And that were like when the game was quite new. Probably late 80s. Like I said, I think 89, 88, 89.
Yeah.
Where they gave us a kit to play in. And that kit lasted forever because we couldn't afford to buy new kits ourselves. So yeah, they just went on and on. So that was kind of definitely one of my first real involvements. And then we played that was at Central Park before the new JJB stadium. So yeah, that I got kids coming up to me asking for my autograph.
Oh, wow.
Thinking, yeah, and it was a wow moment because I was, I'm going to say 18, 19 at the time. So yeah, it was like you thought you were famous for 10 minutes. And then I went on to play. I was lucky enough to play at Old Trafford. That was a Yorkshire Lancashire game, and even though we played in the break between their games, and we played 10 minutes, it was still 10 minutes that you kind of never ever forget.
Yeah. Well, it was a big crowd of 40-odd thousand, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've played all over, and
so Ellen Road and Old Trafford.
Yeah,
and Wigan.
Ellen Road didn't have the same atmosphere though because of the players, but hey ho.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. So when you sort of look back and your memories and you're smiling at some of the things that happened and some of the characters that were in the sport, what were the challenges of, because you were very at the heart of, club secretary, coach, what were the challenges for you as a women's team in order to sort of put the team out every week?
I think mainly the funding, like kind of getting people to take us seriously, to sponsor us. Nobody was interested in it. It was very hard work. I know one year we did a raffle, so we drove around Hunslet. This one, I'm not Hunslet. Asking companies just to buy a raffle ticket for £10, and you go into a hat, and at the end of it, your name will go on our kit. So that was probably the first ever kit that we got at Hunslet, and I think we did. Yeah, I think we covered enough for a new kit, which at the time was £500. So
Mm.
And Hunslet Engine Company came out, for that.
The winner.
The winner, yeah. So, I think mainly money-wise, it was the biggest obstacle. And I wasn't particularly bothered whether people took it as interest, took us seriously, sorry, or not. I just wanted to just play. And, that was it. As long as we could play on a Sunday, kind of that was all I was bothered about. So whether I think it got to a point where I didn't talk about it a lot because when I felt that people didn't take seriously, sorry, I just got on with it, just played instead of trying to tell everybody all about it. I kind of probably kept it a bit of a secret. And yeah, I shouldn't have done. But
Well, at the time, sometimes, you get sick of being knocked back, don't you? Or
yeah,
people pulling a face. I still think now, sometimes I go, and don't forget about the women. And I can see someone going, rolling their eyes at me as if to say, here she goes again.
Yeah. You do get to that point where I think it's just easier not to talk about it then.
Yeah, definitely. So not only were you sort of secretary, bottle washer of sort of the 3 clubs, and you got actively involved in WALA as well, which was Women's Amateur Rugby League Association. How did you get involved with that initially? And
so Cameron Lewis and I lived together, and Dylan. So Karen had showed massive interest, and got herself onto the committee along with Dylan. And Dylan and Karen at the time were sharing the fixtures secretary. Unbeknown probably to everybody else, I was in the background because still working with Dylan, I think, at that point. And I worked on a computer, so I had a little bit of knowledge of how a spreadsheet worked. So I was helping out and not getting the recognition, but I wasn't bothered about that. And then I thought after maybe a season or 2, it's about time that I maybe went on to committee myself. So that's when I did. Still kind of helping those out as well. But yeah, we actually started making the ID cards.
Ah, right, yeah.
So that was fun, when people were sending the pictures through with all the
So you were
players.
doing that yourself? You didn't get any help and support from BALA or anything? You were just doing it as well?
No, we made that. We bought the actual cards, got everybody to send the photographs. I think if I remember rightly, they had to send 2 photographs. So yeah, we did them, wrote them all out.
Wow.
A proper basic ID card.
Was that when you were with Hunslet then?
Yeah, I'm going to say, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting, because I'm trying to work out when, because there were associate members at BALA were WALA, but actually I don't think they ever got full membership, so they always had to look after themselves.
Oh, yeah, we were told that we had to be an associate of BALA, but they never gave us any funding, no money, not even recognition, really. So yeah.
And did you pay for that? I think you probably did.
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know.
Yeah. So you started doing more at WALA, and where did they used to meet and things?
We met all over at Huddersfield, Fartown. That was,
I remember that, where the pigeons used to, the stop clocks and the pigeons.
Yeah. Gosh, I think we used to move it about, to try and kind of spread it out for everybody.
Yeah.
I do remember a lot took place at Fartown.
And that WALA committee, didn't they? They did everything. So they did the disciplinaries, they did the fixtures, they obviously registration of players. They were the league, weren't they?
Yeah,
running all the league for.
I remember doing a couple of disciplinaries. Yeah, so I kind of see it more from a player point of view than most people.
Yeah,
so,
it's important to have a player on a disciplinary, to be honest.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you also began to get involved sort of from your coaching with the Wildcats team, didn't you?
Well, I think it was, I really can't remember. Definitely it was one of my ideas to get a team to play against Only because I'd been knocked back from, I'd been selected for the train-on team for the Great Britain. And I think at this point I'd probably had 2 or 3 knockbacks and got a little bit miffed. So I decided
a scorned woman is a...
Exactly. So yeah, set up the England Wildcats, and we chose to call ourselves the England Wildcats. I'd asked Wakefield Wildcats if we could borrow their logo, and they kind of said, yeah, definitely. So they gave us I want to say they gave us their like CD, an old CD with their logo on it. And then we got somebody to fund a kit, and now I have no idea where we got the funding for a kit. But I loved that kit. It was red and blue predominantly.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So yeah, there was myself, Guiseley Hansen, and a guy, I don't know, I can't remember his name for the life of me. I think he was from Hull, kind of gingerish beard, moustache.
Oh, Dave. Was that Dave?
Not much hair.
Yeah. Dave Carter.
Was it?
Possibly.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Possibly.
Remember.
We'll work it all out as this. Oh,
yeah,
brilliant.
I've got him on it.
Yeah.
And we played against the GB side. I mean, obviously their players are way much stronger, so we got beat every time, but we gave them a good battle.
And that's what they needed at the time, wasn't it? Because they had no opposition.
Yeah. No, and we played at Dorothy Hyman Stadium in Barnsley. I remember playing there on the hottest day of the year. Wow, that was hot. And yeah, we played them a few times in other places, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. And without that, and even now it's a challenge for the England team around in the Northern Hemisphere, there's just no opposition that gives them a really good game. And that was really important for the development of the Great Britain squad, that you had that.
I think as well, a few players from that team went on to play for Great Britain as well. If I remember rightly, I think Chantal Patrick were in that. I looked at a photograph the other day and thought, I need to remember that. Yeah.
Don't worry.
I think Debbie Hodgkinson as well. She was.
Ah, right, yeah.
So yeah, there were quite a few players.
And then you were obviously very involved in the county setup, weren't you, from a Yorkshire point of view? Because you played county, but also coached as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think
Yorkshire county, that is. None of this Lancashire stuff.
No. I felt that I played in just about every county game that there was when I was playing, except for, I think there were a couple of times that I went on a holiday, so obviously I couldn't play. But yeah, majority of the time I was involved. And then so when I got to a point where I didn't want to play anymore, or at least I didn't think I was good enough to represent Yorkshire anymore, then I got involved sort of more from a manager's point of view, and I got a couple of people interested. A guy from Hunslet, he was involved in like the Hunslet development area. Paul Hazelwood, I think he was called.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
He was probably one of the first coaches I got involved. And then another one, I got Gary Lord, who I knew and had seen playing for Leeds.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. But I'd coached his daughter at Castleford Panthers. So I kind of got to know him quite well and asked him to come along and help us with Yorkshire. And I do think that they genuinely loved their time coaching the women. As short-lived as it probably was, I think they certainly enjoyed it. And 2 great guys really that helped us. And then one year, Simon Hussein, who used to play Guiseley, her and myself had, probably more Simon, had a good contact at Leeds Carnegie, and he funded a kit for us and tracksuits. I think we've got bags, tracksuits, and a kit, all from Leeds Carnegie. So I mean, wow, that was just something we'd never ever had before. So yeah, that was great. I mean, on top of that, Simon and myself were then involved in some like charity events that included Bara, the Asian.
British, yeah, with Ikram Butt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We went down to Richmond and we played at Harlequins Rugby League Club.
Yeah.
And we played like in a little tournament against, there were Phil Clark there, Tony Ray, Martin of Fire, a couple of politicians. And it just kind of, to raise the awareness of probably Asian Rugby League as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really important body that was sort of set up and it was
yeah,
about rugby, not particularly rugby league, but it was about rugby and
yeah,
inclusion, wasn't it?
yeah. So we played down at Harlequins one year, and then the following year we played up at Headingley, and I played in both games and thoroughly enjoyed those.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we shocked a couple of players, that we could actually play a little bit.
I think we often did as women, didn't we? I never did as a player, I might add. But
yeah, so a bit of an eye opener for them.
Yeah, it's been really interesting throughout this because a lot of we're beginning to get footage of some of those early games, and when you look at it, the talent that was on show in the 1980s and the 1990s was just phenomenal.
Yeah,
It was phenomenal, and you were one of the best scrum halves, by far, with your play. Not to embarrass you, but you were, you were a very talented athlete on the pitch. So, how old were you when you retired?
well, I don't think I ever really retired.
That doesn't surprise me.
Officially retire. I just think when Milford folded, and then I went and played. I played at York. I think I played at York a couple of seasons. And I can't remember where I played at Castleford. I can't remember whether Castleford came first or York. And then I had quite a long gap. And then I think Wiggett had started playing for Batley along with Tish. And I were 41, I had a hysterectomy.
Oh, wow.
And they asked me if I fancied playing. So, like a fool, I had my hysterectomy in the February, and I started training then kind of the summer ready to play in the winter. And I remember taking it steady to start off with, but by the September, I think I was just thinking that I can't take this steady, can I? Yeah, 41, nearly 42, I'd started playing again.
Wow.
And I think I helped, a few of the players at Batley.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed that. And then after a couple of years, I just stopped playing.
Yeah. But you did a bit of masters as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and if Masters came calling again, I'd probably don
Did
a
you
pair
hear
of
that,
boots.
everyone? You got a player here.
It's because I just love it when you get on that pitch. It's just mad. You just want to play, and I'm competitive anyway, but that comes back, and you want to play again. So
Yeah.
I'm just not bothered about tackling. So I might have to wear a pair of gold shorts next time.
I think you've earned them, Michaela.
Yeah, true.
You've earned your gold shorts.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And an absolute phenomenal career when you begin to look at sort of, right from that 15-year-old who didn't know anything about rugby league to your whole involvement in the sport. And of course, I mean, I know we mentioned it in the last interview, but we can't go without mentioning the 1989 tour, which was the first Great Britain tour the first Great Britain team, and they went on tour to France to play France. When you got to France, obviously there was no teams to play, but actually it was a phenomenal achievement,
Oh yes,
selection and
definitely.
everything else to get to France.
Yeah, because we'd had some trials. So the trials were at Halifax, and all the players that were playing at that time came, and obviously had to trial. Then they picked a squad of, I'm going to say, maybe 25 players, And we then also went over to France. So yeah, to be part of that, it was fantastic. Like I said, Lisa and Mac were there. Angie Pickard from Michelle, 2 players from Guiseley, quite a few Halifax, like Lisa Mack played for Halifax at that time.
We were just looking at it, there's probably 8 or 10 players from Halifax. We were just looking at some pictures actually.
Yeah, because I remember Julie Archer, Nikki Hardcastle, Lisa Mack, Jill, a girl called Jill.
Yeah, Jill Damon.
Yeah.
Lindsay.
Yeah, Lindsay, I remember Lindsay. Yeah. Sue, then from Dudley Hill, they were like Sue Bland. Ruth, Ruth Jowett, and quite a few other players. And then Guiseley, a few from Guiseley, Tracy Clayton, Tracy Lennon, myself. Yeah, so quite a few players, and all good players. I don't really think that we had a weak player. They'd all certainly earned the stripes.
Yeah.
Probably out in the future.
And at that time, fundraising to get there and you all getting there and actually doing a tour, I know it didn't quite pan out as you hoped, but what a great experience.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we all had to find, I want to say probably £200 to go, which I think, at the time I didn't earn that much. I probably earned something like 350 quid a month. So peanuts, but then trying to go away for a weekend that cost me 250 quid. Wow, yeah. A lot of money. But no, we went across on a boat. I can remember the long trip. We had a long trip down to, say Southampton, ferry across to France, and then ended up playing against each other. And I think we did play France in the final game.
It was under 17 boys, from what I understand.
No, we did. I'm sure we played some women.
Oh, right.
We did play. We did play women, but they just didn't have a clue because they were a million miles away from where the standard that we were at. But yeah, we did play some women. I'm sure we did. I don't remember playing against the boys, but yeah, I know we played in a tournament with the other team, and like we came first. We entered 3 teams. We came first, second, and third.
Oh, so it was like a round robin tournament.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And you played contact.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
There is a photograph somewhere where one team's in white and one's in blue. That was Great Britain versus Great Britain, but in different kits.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what, as a young woman, what an adventure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, spending time, going across on that boat with, legends of the game, and having that experience as a bunch of women and people that I called my friends at the time. So yeah, absolute fantastic.
Yeah. And when you sort of look back, so you look back at everything that you've been involved with right from the start, what do you think about how do you feel about what you've achieved in the sport and what you've got from it as well as personally, from a personal point of view?
Do you know what? In all honesty, I don't really think about it that often. I think, I suppose looking back, I underplay it. I don't credit myself probably with it as much as other people maybe try and credit me with, and that's just because I'm not after the accolades. It was just something I loved and enjoyed at the time. I enjoyed coaching. I enjoyed sort of telling people about the game, but I just wasn't overly bothered about kind of like I said, taking those accolades for those things that I did. So, but I mean, the biggest thing, from it all, I think, are the amount of friends that I've made. Like I said in my last interview, the kind of message that I would give to anybody playing nowadays, first and foremost, enjoy it, and make friends for life. So yeah, just get to be a team, play as a team, and stick by your team. And I think that's kind of the main thing. Play as a team, and those friendships create that team. And I play rounders now, and yeah, I'm just a little bit competitive with that.
No.
And I try and portray that team ethic, in rounders. I still get them to do little drills that are kind of rugby related, and they're all like, they all roll their eyes at me, thinking, "What on earth are we doing?" But it's a ball, isn't it? So for me, it kind of.
You got to play properly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Play to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michaela. Yeah, Michaela, thank you. You are a real pioneer of women's rugby league, and you are just so often when I'm meeting women from rugby league, they underplay the role that they've played. Without you, a lot of rugby league wouldn't have happened in the Leeds area. Without you, the Wildcats wouldn't have happened, and the Yorkshire county. So, please, take that accolade and the praise that should be at you for the work that you've done within rugby league, all on a voluntary capacity and all around the governing body and things. And you are a pioneer of those early years and continue to champion the sport. So thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you.
Sorry to embarrass you.
It's always a pleasure, Julia.